Hi, my name is Ethan Foreman. I'm 16 years old. Today is November 26th, 2023, and I'm here with my gram.
Tema Steele.
And we are at her business office, Tema, what is it called?
Steele Financial Solutions.
Steele Financial Solutions. So, Grams, where were you born?
In Philadelphia.
Where did you grow up? Oh, you grew up.
I grew up in Northeast Philadelphia. We actually lived in West Philadelphia until the time I was about 6 years old, and then moved to Northeast Philadelphia. And I lived there, and when I went to college, I was still living there.
What was your childhood like?
It was really nice. I was a tomboy, so I didn't play with dolls. I never had a doll. I used to be out running with the boys and just being real active.
Mm-hmm. So for those at home, my gram graduated from Temple University in 1970 with her undergraduate. What was college like in 1970?
Well, again, being not running with the crowd, it was interesting. I was the only woman in my classes. I was in business administration. All of my other friends were in education or nursing. Yeah. But I kind of ran against the group, if you will, and I was the only woman in all my classes. Wow. So it was difficult sometimes, but that's what I wanted to do.
So what was it like living, oh my goodness, what was it like living on the brink of poverty and trying to support for two children as a single mother?
Well, I was in an abusive relationship, and I had a divorce basically when the kids were 2 and 4. And I was on food stamps. I had nothing. Mm-hmm. My parents used to give me about $100 a week for food. It was really hard. And at one point I realized whatever I do, I have to have a career that I'm going to be able to feed my kids. They were big eaters even back then.
Yeah.
So it was really scary. When I first started my job in 1981, I used to get up every morning and throw up. For a couple months, I was just so scared. It was just really frightening. I felt so alone. Even though my parents were supportive, they had their own life. Mm-hmm. So I felt like it was up to me. But fortunately, I had the inner strength to move ahead and create a wonderful career.
Yeah. So what was it like starting your business in the 80s when there were very few women entrepreneurs?
Well, it's interesting. It was really hard. I was the only woman, again, in the office. They had me in, they used to call it the bullpen. They had an office space, and you had a little desk, a cubicle. And I was the only woman. So the guys didn't want me there. And they would talk about sports all the time and make off-color comments. Mm-hmm. And it was horrible. So the managing partner moved me to my own little office to get me out of that environment, which is good.
And when did you open your business?
In 1981.
Okay. So what job do you currently hold now?
I'm, basically the owner and partner. I have my son, Joel, who's been with me in March. It'll be 20 years. And it's an interesting story. He wanted to have a healthy fast food restaurant, and he actually created 3 of them. But it became a real problem because he couldn't get help. One guy called in, he had gotten shot the night before. I mean, it was a nightmare.
Oh.
So, yeah. So he didn't know what he wanted to do. He was he was on the verge of a breakdown. I mean, it was horrible. Mm-hmm. He was in debt, and it was a really difficult time. So I was walking him around the old office, which was on Chapel Avenue. And I said, if you want, why don't you come with me? I have a lot of people that have term insurance. I don't really do anything with them. Maybe you can work with them a little bit. Mm-hmm. So he reluctantly decided he would do that for maybe a year. Yeah. Well, he did that for a year, and then I wanted to start training him. He seemed to really enjoy the career. Mm-hmm. And 20 years later, here's where we are. Mm-hmm. And he's wildly successful in this business, mm-hmm. really good at it. Mm-hmm.
How long did it take for your business to really take off?
I would say I'd say a good 10 years. Mm-hmm. Because again, what I did was, my philosophy was every person I worked with was like a brick in a building. They had referrals, they had knew other people. So even though the policy, let's say it was an IRA for $1,000 or a life insurance policy for $10,000, I figured if I have a lot of people, I would finally do well. So I used to write about 100 cases a year, and that's how I build up my business. Mm-hmm.
So can you define success?
That's a really tough one. I know you told me that this was a question.
Yeah.
Success is feeling like you've made a difference. It's not a monetary figure. It's more that you feel like you've done something at the end of the day, that you've helped someone else. You've been instrumental in helping someone get to a goal.
Yeah. And do you feel you've achieved success?
I do, yeah. Monetarily, I don't have to worry about anything anymore. which again, coming from where I did in the beginning, is a very huge thing. And I do gift a lot now to different people. And I want to be helpful. I want to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah. So what was your who was your biggest influence in your life?
Boy, that's a really tough one. Biggest influence. I would say my mom was really helpful. My mom was always happy, always cheerful. And although my father was the opposite way, but she was always a cheerleader for me. She always made me feel special and loved. And she used to call me her doll baby when I was a little girl. I remember sitting on her lap and she would hug me. And I would say that she gave me a really good foundation as to kind of who I am and that I can be special.
Can you describe one of the happiest memories?
In my whole life?
Yes.
Oh, that's a tough one. I remember reading that one. Well, you know, recently, I have to say recently, I had a 75th birthday party, and I had everyone there was a special person in my life. I had friends, clients, relatives, and it was really special at this time of my life. It kind of was like completing it. And I made a joke, but it's not really a joke. You know, when you're 75 and you don't know how long you're going to be here. Hopefully I'll be here a long time, but mostly in good health and a good mind. It was nice to have that people say nice things and be appreciated. I always said I don't want to hear it at a funeral because I won't hear it. I'll be gone. And everyone should do that, kind of have a celebration of life when they're alive, not when they're dead. So I would say recently that was a special time.
What are you most proudest of?
Most proudest of? Well, I would say picking up my violin again. I practice every morning. I take a violin lesson every week. I've really improved. I started playing violin when I was 8 years old. When I got married to the abusive one that I mentioned, he didn't like the sound of the violin. So at age 20, I stopped playing. And I picked it up again 55 years later. So I'm really proud of the fact that it's now been about 7 years that I've been playing the violin again and advancing and getting to a really good level.
Yeah. So you've sacrificed a lot in your life for the success you have now. How would you like people to remember you?
Again, making a difference. I think that's what life is all about. That when you're no longer here, people feel a void and they realize that you did something. In our business, we're retirement planners. And as we help people retire, it's not only the retirement at that time, but working with them as they get older. Another really thing that I love about my career is we work with many of the children, because being in the business for 42 years, as you can imagine, a lot of my original clients have died or will be dying, or unfortunately, it's tough. But we work with their kids, so we help them. And a lot of the kids do very well, and the connection of how we work with their parents is very strong. So again, you have that. It's a family generation legacy type of thing.
Yeah. So thinking about future generations and knowing that they might hear this recording, is there any wisdom or advice you would like to share with them?
Again, the most important thing is making a difference. It's not how much money you have. You know, on a tombstone, if you walk in a graveyard, do you see that I had the biggest house on the block? Do you see I had $10 million? No. Beloved husband, beloved father, beloved grandmother. That's the essence right there. So if you can think about what would you want on your tombstone? Who would you want to have be beloved to?
Yeah.
I think that's a really good driving force.
Okay, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
How long?
So where is your mother from?
My mother grew up in Philadelphia, in a different part of Philadelphia. And my father came from Lithuania. His father came over and he established himself here, and then he brought my great-grandmother over along with my father.
So where's
Lithuania? It's basically near Russia.
Okay. And one more question. Can you tell me a lesson you've learned from your relationships?
It's interesting. My father was very negative. I mentioned that earlier. And when I told him what I wanted to do, which was get into the life insurance and investment business, he told me I wouldn't make it. He said most people go into it and they never make it, and I should consider another career. But of course, I had my own ideas, and obviously I did succeed. Before he passed away 12 years ago, he realized that I did succeed, and he was very proud of me, which really was nice. I really appreciated that positive response from him.
So what was your spark to create Steele Financial Solutions?
Well, when I went into the business, I have to tell you the story. I call it after the divorce. When I was married to the person that I told you was abusive, he wanted me to get my MBA degree because he read that if you have that degree, you make more money. He basically didn't do much at all. So what I did was, I used to help him. He was a metropolitan debit agent. What that means is people used to go around in the insurance business and collect the premium, the policy money. It was like 25 cents or $1 a week, and that's what he did. You didn't really make cold calls or anything like that. So he asked me to do that. So I would call in the evening and make appointments for him. And I was good at it. And he'd be sitting downstairs watching TV while I was doing that. Not a real loser, if I might say.
Yeah.
So he worked in Metropolitan, and I often would go up to the office with him. New York Life was on the same floor. And one day I said, why didn't you go to work at New York Life? It's such a good company. He said he tried, but he failed the entrance exam. So after the divorce, out of spite, I went to New York Life. And I said I want to work here.
Did you get in?
I did. Here I am. Yeah. So that was what I call making lemonade out of my lemons. And I did that out of spite. And out of spite became a wonderful career.
So it took a lot of confidence for you to divorce your abusive husband. So what can, I'm trying to think how to say this. How long did it take for you to gain the confidence to leave your husband you were in an abusive relationship?
Yeah. Well, I had a professor. I had gone back to school. I went to Drexel for my MBA, and I had a teacher who was really wonderful, and he was aware of my situation, and he really helped me through it because it was terrible. His father, my ex-husband's father, moved into the house, and because he had paid for half the house, and he wanted me out. So it was really awful. And this professor was really helpful to me. But gaining confidence again, it took me years. I was in therapy. He had basically reduced me down to nothing. I had no self-esteem at all. And during the divorce, he said to his lawyer, you should consider putting a detective on her to see if she's running around with someone else. And his comment to the lawyer was, who'd be interested in her? So I had no self-esteem whatsoever.
Yeah.
It was like being, that's what happens when you're in an abusive situation. You feel like you're nothing. So it took me a long time to build myself back up.
Do you have advice for people who might be in the situation you were in?
Yeah, you have to get out. You can't be a victim. And I had 2 kids that were 2 and 4 at this point. But the main thing was he also beat my son. And I can't go into that because I can't deal with the pain of even talking about that.
Yeah.
But that was the driving force that I knew I had to get out. Because if I was stupid enough to stay, I couldn't subject my children to that.
Thank you.